Welcome back to the Piping Pastor. Well, today, trying another new tobacco. Well, new to me in any case, Escudo, Navy Deluxe. Now, yes, this tobacco has been around for a while, like 140 years or something. But I'm not a fan of vapors in the main. I do enjoy straight Virginias. Whenever I want something sweet, that's usually what I go toward because I'm not a big aromatic person. And I don't mind Perique is as a condiment in blends. But for my taste, vapors with just that high amount of Perique in there with Virginia, especially if it's a light Virginia, um, it gets to be a bit too much for me. So I just don't care for it. But I know this, in terms of vapors, is like a huge favorite amongst people who enjoy those. Like usually in people's top three of the vapors that they smoke, if not, their number one favorite. So in this last tobacco order that I did when I got the Indaba and the Fayum, I was like, let me give this a go. Everyone talks about it, and apparently, I think in 2023 they changed the blend again and reduced the amount of Perique in it. So it still has the light grassy Virginias, which I prefer when it comes to my Virginia selections. So it's like, well, let me give it a go. So once again, popping a 10 here with you all for the first time. So if I can get it open. There we go. Okay. And this is in coins. So, okay. I'm getting a lot of the Virginia, and I'm really not getting much Perique. I'll look at one of the coins there. So, see, this does feel kind of moist. So, I think I may let this dry out for a bit, and then come back and we'll see what it looks like. Now you know what? I'm just going to go for it. I know I'm going to regret this. So I said it. You heard me say it. I'm going to regret this. It's Virginia. It's a moist Virginia, so this sucker is going to be hot. But when it comes to coins, I do the stuff in fold method. So I'm going to fold it over once and fold it over twice. You can't see me on this thing because I don't have my robot tray in front of me. And then stuff it in the pipe. So for this, I am using my my little Admiral pipe here because it likes Virginias. Okay. And let's give it a go. Not much yet. Hold on. Hmm. You know what? This is not bad. It's really rather mild. Um, for me, I think that Perique, uh, that Perique's at a pretty good level. It's way too moist. I'm gonna leave this 10 open for a while. Um, that is pretty tasty. Okay, it is. It is a mild tobacco. This would be maybe a cup of Earl Grey tea, but definitely on a coffee or maybe a lighter drink, tonic water or something like that. because it is really super mild, but it's sweet, but it's not overly sweet. There's a little bit of the, the that plumminess, um, but it's mainly just bread, a little grassy, but yeah, pretty good. Mild, I say very very mild. You could easily smoke this all day, and I think from my perspective, I think the room note's pretty mild as well. So yeah, if you've never tried a vapor before and you don't want to go headlong into something really really harsh, this would probably be a good one for you to start with. It's not like my first experience with the Indaba, where I was like, it's hot air. It's not that. It's just a really mild, sweet kind of tobacco. Definitely could use some drying time though, just relight based on the relights of it. Mm, pretty good. Well, on to the second part of the title for this video. I was reading earlier in my Francis Bacon book. This is part of a series called Great Books of the Western World. So it's got like, Kant and Boswell, and it goes all the way back to, Plato and so on and so forth. So it goes pretty deep. This series of thinkers and their publications. And as I was reading this, I got to this one section that reminded me of something I was talking about in the Bible study that I lead this week. And so I wanted to share it with you here. And as for the disgraces which learning receiveth from politicians, they be of this nature, that learning doth soften men's mind, and makes them more unapt for the honor and exercise of arms, that it doth mar and pervert men's dispositions for matters of government and policy, in making them too curious and irresolute by variety of reading, or too extemporary or positive by strictness of rules and axioms, or too immoderate and overweening by reason of the greatest examples, or too incompatible and too differing from the times by reason of dissimilitude of examples, or at least that it doth divert men's travails from actions and business, and bringeth them to a love of leisure and privateness, that it brings in a state of relaxation, of discipline, while every man is more ready to argue than to obey and execute. So what he's saying here basically is that politicians or people in governance say learning is bad. People who spend too much time studying are not good for governance or arms. They are, let me get back here, too curious and irresolute by a variety of reading. So by having too much knowledge, they have too many perspectives. And so it makes them seem irresolute, like they can never make up their minds because they have too many options available to them. Or they're too positive by strictness of rules and axioms, or the other way, where they're too sure of themselves and their teaching and their understanding of reality that they don't vary from it and they don't change opinions or listen to others or so on and so forth. Or too immoderate and overweening by reason of the greatness of examples, or too incompatible and differing from times by reason of dissimilitude. So basically, in any way you could think of it, in terms of someone getting something done, having too much learning is bad. That it's just not productive. You're not going to be a good governor. You're not going to be a good soldier. You can't be a good citizen if you got too much of that book learning stuff. And then he goes on for several paragraphs, writing some examples. Out of this conceit, Cato, surnamed the Censor, one of the wisest men indeed that ever lived, when Carneades the philosopher came in embassage to Rome, and that the young men of Rome began to flock about him, being allured with the sweetness and majesty of his eloquence and learning, gave counsel in open senate that they should give him his dispatch with all speed, lest he should infect and enchant the minds and affections of the youth, and unawares bring in an alteration of the manners and customs of the state. So he's saying this politician way back in the day did the same thing with Cato. When Cato came to Rome and started teaching, he's like, "Oh, get that learned fellow out of there. He's going to infect our youth with all these newfangled ideas," and so on and so forth. He goes on with several other examples through history where people have done that and pointed the finger at learning as being something negative and bad. And then he comes to this conclusion here. We've been talking about these different examples. But these and the like imputations have rather a countenance of gravity than a ground of justice. It's like, so these accusations that the people have made in history and people are currently making, and remember, this is Francis Bacon writing this, right? So this is a while ago. This is not something that was published on Twitter yesterday. He's saying that it has rather the countenance of gravity rather than any ground of justice. So it seems like wisdom. It seems like there's something important there, but it's not grounded in anything of any note. For experience doth wander that both in persons and in times there hath been a meeting and concurrence in learning and in arms, flourishing and excelling in the same men in the same ages. For as men there cannot be a better nor like instance of that pair, Alexander the Great and Julius the Caesar, whereof one was Aristotle's scholar in philosophy, and the other was Cicero's rival in eloquence. So he's saying this is completely untrue. And we can point to examples in history. Alexander the Great, who was a very, very learned person. And then Julius Caesar, again, a very, very learned person who spent a great deal of time in study. What you often have when people denigrate education, when they say things like, the academics in their ivory towers, or, they're too clever by half, and things of that nature. Oftentimes, that is espoused by people who don't want you to learn, know, grow, and have a variety of opinions. Because the less learning you have, the less knowledge you have, the less you are aware of things going on around you and so forth, the easier you are to control. People who pursue, not just saying pursue education in terms of degrees, don't mishear me. I'm not saying that it's needful to go get this degree or that degree in order to be taken seriously. What I'm saying is be mindful of your education and attempt to read, come to know things, and understand things. Because it's not like a negative thing. It doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you unable to govern. It doesn't make you unable to be a soldier or a business person. It just makes you a more informed politician, soldier, or business person. And we need some more of that. We need people who are in power and people who have influence and people who are making these decisions and so forth to have some kind of background and knowledge and history, to understand, where it is that we came from as a country and as a people, to understand where it is that we could be going. It becomes a very, very popular thing for people to push that away and say, no, just, we don't need all that stuff. That's for those people over there. But those people over there are us. We are the ones who have the responsibility to come to know and understand the world around us so that we can make more informed decisions as well. There's nowhere in the Bible where it says that, you should just be ignorant, right? Fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, but it doesn't mean that we're just meant to stay ignorant and illiterate and never read, write, or whatever. Joseph, one of the great examples from Genesis, is a very intelligent young man, spoke at least 2 languages that we know of, probably more, was very good with mathematics, was very good with logistics. The commanders of the armies of the Israelites, King David, Solomon. There's examples all the way through the Bible of learned persons who have pursued education and done it in a godly way. And as a result, they were a benefit to all those around them. But you can see from, the time of Cato until today and everywhere in between, it's a common thing that people in power don't want other people to have knowledge because they know that knowledge is power. So don't give up on that. Read. Go to the library. Check out a book. Get away from Twitter. Get away from Facebook. Get away from all those online sources that never cite where it is they come from. Do the hard work. Get up. Go to a library and check out a book. You don't have to go buy it. You don't have to go take a college class. Just walk to the local library. Trust me, you'll find plenty of space there. Take some books off the shelves, read, and educate yourself. Give yourself that power. And then, by all means, run for office and make some decisions. Well, that is it for this time. I hope you have a lovely week. I'm going to turn back to my overly moist tobacco and enjoy the rest of my evening as well. Have a great week. As always, happy reading.